You're listening to the AstroMommy Daily Horoscope, a forecast that hopes to shine a light in the dark, helping us all see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Whether you're a first-time listener or a long-time subscriber, thanks for being here. I truly appreciate you being in the AstroMommy community. I hope you enjoyed today's horoscope and card reading. If you would like to support the AstroMommy Newsletter, there are several ways to do so. Subscribe on Substack, share it with a friend, schedule a reading, check out my family's Etsy shop, Metaphysical Flamingo, or just leave a tip. Without further ado, here is the Daily Horoscope. Moon in Gemini square Venus, plus the Five of Swords. We don't have to always have the last word. Daily Horoscope for Monday, January 30th, 2023. Good morning, friends. Okay, let's get into the astrology. Monday seems to be a bit of a bipolar day, with the moon changing signs from Taurus, the sign of her exaltation, to Gemini, a sign where she doesn't have any essential dignity at all. So it's like going from something sensual and body-oriented to something very mental, like transitioning from working and digging in your garden to going inside and sitting at the computer doing data entry. Then the moon makes a square with Venus, which is tense and challenging, followed by a sextile to Jupiter, which is harmonious and beneficial. So a bit of a bipolar relationship going on with the two benefics as well. First, before we get into the transits of the daylight hours, I wanted to mention that the moon perfected a trine to Pluto around 1 a.m. early this morning. The moon entered into the 3-degree range of engagement with Pluto at around 7 p.m. Eastern time last night. So there could have been something very moon-Pluto that happened last night. Something that had the possibility of being very triggering or bringing up intense emotions or a deeply transformative experience, but because it was a trine, this experience would have happened easily without a crisis or a challenge and may have felt really good, like finally pulling out an ingrown hair that's been bothering you. Amazingly, it just came out. You didn't have to dig or pull with force, it just uncurled and slid out. So I wanted to mention that in case anyone had an experience last night that could have been uncomfortable but amazingly wasn't. The moon made her ingress into the sign of Gemini at 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time, so by the time we all wake up in the northern hemisphere, she will be in Gemini. Once in Gemini, the moon is ready to talk, and you may notice yourself or others around you in a more talkative, curious, or capricious mood. Besides being a talkative moon, the moon in Gemini likes to collect data, figure out puzzles, and look at things through analytical glasses. It's a very expressive, youthful, and restless moon, with a great desire to communicate, and that doesn't always mean pleasant conversations, but rather intelligent, curious, and sometimes argumentative ones. There's a flexibility, changeability, and sort of chaotic nature to Gemini in general that can be very uncomfortable for some. Where others may see a random mess that just looks like craziness, a Gemini person can see patterns and order in the chaos that no one else can see. By noon, the moon in Gemini forms a square to Venus in Pisces, which could lead to conflicts in relationships, moodiness, or indifference. There could be a struggle between the women in your life, or maybe this square represents a challenging moment that has to do with finances and bills. It is the end of the month, after all, so this square could be an accounting challenge that presents itself. Just having to do the bills and balance everything up could be a chore with the Gemini moon square Venus in Pisces. Both planets would rather just follow their bliss, but that's not always productive. So action needs to be taken to accomplish something, and this could create some tension. By 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the moon forms a sextile to Jupiter in Aries, and this could bring more happiness and less strain. In the analogy of paying bills or balancing the accounting, this sextile could bring more harmony and less struggle to the earlier situation. Maybe we find a degree of flow with the whole situation, or we turn it into a game, and so it becomes less mundane and boring and more fun and exciting. The moon ends her night in a conjunction to Mars in Gemini, so we end the day on a passionate, assertive note that has a desire for change, movement, and momentum. It could also feel sort of climactic, like an exclamation mark at the end of a sentence. Hopefully, this conjunction represents the positive side of Mars, like courage, passion, and taking action, and not the negative side of Mars showing up that brings strife, conflict, and accidents. When the moon and Mars come together in the sign of Gemini, it's a focus on the mind and body, creating an alignment of what we think we want with what we physically need. So we have the energy to fulfill our needs, and this may be the need to talk and have conversations. As always, with anything conjoining Mars, the possibility for anger, fights, and frustration looms, so be aware that this conjunction could turn up the heat temperamentally. Let's move on to the card for the day. What is the guidance for today? 5 of Swords. On this card, we see a man sitting on a hillside. 3 swords are by his side, and 2 more are strewn on the ground by his feet. In the background are 2 others walking away from the man. It is clear that there has been a battle of some sort, and the other men don't want anything to do with the man on the hill. The Five of Swords is all about having had a conflict, and even though you may have won the argument, you feel like crap. You lost some trust, respect, or dignity by fighting this fight, and now you have to deal with your feelings. We must pick and choose our battles, as they say. Learning to compromise may be the answer. Quote, the longer you brood or the more you try to prove you were right, the more challenging the relationship will become, unquote. It may be time to apologize and ask for forgiveness. As the guidance for the day, I feel that this represents that there could be a tense moment today where we want to have the last word and win the argument at all costs. But if we do that, we won't actually feel good about the situation in the end, and we'll need to go back and try to smooth over any hurt feelings. So I feel that this card is putting us on notice that we don't have to always be right, and we don't have to assert our dominance over a situation just because we can, but instead be more humble and easygoing. Let me know if this reading resonates with you in the comments. I hope this is helpful. Until tomorrow, AstroMommy.
Thank you for reading or listening to the Daily Horoscope. Quick links and resources can be found at the bottom of the newsletter. Today's card was pulled from the Ethereal Visions Illuminated Tarot, available on Amazon. If you purchase anything through the affiliate links that I provide in the newsletters, I will make a small commission, but there are no additional costs to you. I don't share or recommend things that I don't 100% believe in and use myself. Thanks for listening.